Welcome and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. I am very excited today to welcome one of our brilliant, amazing Sales Maven Society members. It's Carol Becker, and she's here to talk about some of the successes that she's experienced in her life and in her business using these techniques. And the idea behind this is to inspire you so that you can also look for ways that you can implement these things into your own life or business so you can get the same type of result. Carol Becker, welcome to the show, friend.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. I do really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I feel like this has been a long time coming, and I'm very thrilled that you said yes to wanting to come onto the podcast to share a little bit. Will you tell the audience a little bit about you and the work that you do?
Well, I was in a career as a mechanical design engineer when in 1985 I fell into a coma. And when I came out of the coma, I had memory loss and I couldn't remember how to do things that I knew damn well I used to know how to do. And I did eventually recover. And what I knew then was that I wanted to help people with memory loss. I unfortunately found out, well, for me, unfortunately, because I really wanted to work with them, people with dementia cannot legally sign contracts.
Because you were trying to work with people with dementia.
I was actually working with people with dementia on a pro bono basis there to
Okay.
start.
Okay.
And so I realized then that I had to learn more about the caregivers because I knew how it felt to lose your memory, but I didn't know what it was like to be a caregiver. So I volunteered with the Alzheimer's Society as a facilitator for a group of caregivers and their person. So we'd meet together, and I get to hear both sides of the story different times. And I learned that the caregivers are struggling with emotions that are just overwhelming and unpredictable and unknowable and lost and confused and feeling guilty and angry and wanting to scream at their person when their last straw with that caregiving happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized then that, yes, I had to help those caregivers because helping them with their life was going to make it easier for them to help the person they loved.
And that's what you do now in your business is you support caregivers, and tell us a little bit about the way that you work with them and the things that you do with them.
Well, the first thing I do with them is just they're so full of energy with the frustration, the overwhelm. I just let them talk
Mm-hmm.
because they have to get that out before anything else can happen. That's where their focus is. And then during that time, I find out what their main struggles are, and then we work on that. And one of the tools I have is hypnotherapy for calm and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and other emotions as well.
Okay. Fantastic. And so the end result for somebody who is a caregiver who's experiencing these emotions is after having sessions with you, they can maintain a more calm demeanor, maybe, or maybe more resilient. Is that true? More
Oh,
resilient?
resilience, absolutely, because they've learned from me what's going on in their person's brain. They're not being mean, they're not being manipulative, they're just being in the world that they're in, and it's not your world.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, patience, pause, be kind. And one really important thing, they may not remember what they did yesterday, but they will remember how to read body language.
Mm.
So if you're talking to them and you want them to be cooperative, you be kind and gentle and use kind eyes and kind tones of voice and that kind of just I'm here for you. I want you to be safe. I love you.
Mm.
And they can get better cooperation that day. That don't always work, but it looks most of the time.
Mm. This is
So you can't
fantastic.
say, I love you, damn it. That will not come across as loving.
No, and I can't even
I saw a
imagine.
caregiver do that, and I talked to her later about it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness that you're doing this work for caregivers who really are, I think, unsung, what's the unsung heroes, right? Like
Unsung,
to
unpaid. Yeah.
unpaid, yes, to be doing this type of work that you haven't been trained to do, right? If you're caring for
Right.
a loved one, it's not like you went to school for this. Nobody taught you how to do it, but yet you're thrust into a situation. And so, thank goodness that you're there as somebody who can be a support and somebody who will listen and somebody who can offer
Right.
some real world advice and strategies and techniques to allow them to show up as the best version of themselves that they're capable of being in those really, really tough situations.
They are. Yes.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that you're doing this work. Okay. So, Carol, tell us a little bit about kind of before we got to work together and then having worked together now for the last little bit, what would you say is the one thing that you've incorporated that you've seen some results? Like what were you doing before? What are you doing now? And what have the results been?
Well, one of the hardest things for me to do after a 50 odd year career in engineering, where your words are very terse and very direct and very specific, is the sales language. It took me a long time to find the feelings that go with the find the words for the feelings.
Mm,
Actually, I what I started doing was reading romance novels because there are a lot of feelings in romance novels, and I could
yes, there
connect
are.
with those. And I was developing the feeling language, and and that made it easier for me to connect to people who are feeling horrible, and because I can use the words and use the loving kindness that they need.
Mm, okay. So it really was about words. Do you have any specific examples of things like I would have said it this way before. I say it this way now.
Well, in communication, the one thing you taught me was don't do a lot of I did this and I'm doing that and I appreciate you, but focus on the client.
Mm,
So this the that you have been so good at following our instructions and getting the results that you wanted. So I wouldn't say I'm glad you followed the instructions and got the results you wanted. So
that's
not
fantastic.
starting with I was
Yes.
difficult, very difficult. And then using the feeling language, I got better responses when I started doing that from people that were prospects
Mm-hmm.
because we were connecting. I wasn't talking to them, I was talking with them.
Yes.
It's a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does make all the difference when you instead of focusing on you and your thoughts, which of course makes sense because we have thoughts and then we say them out loud. So, I'm glad you did this. That's one way to say it. But, like, look what you did as a result of, implementing the things that we worked on. Now that feels very much focused on the client and is going to feel like more of a compliment and more of a like good job, accolade than talking about what you're glad and versus what they actually did. So I love that you've been able to transition that and
Yeah,
pay
that was
attention
very
to that.
difficult. That was
Hmm.
yeah. And then the kindness language that I started making my sentences the way I did as an engineer. And then I said, what adjective or adverb could I use here that indicates um, a feeling tone of one kind or another? And so, but I had to write it out the old way at first.
Hmm.
And then look at, because there are adjectives and adverbs and stuff like that that I didn't use a lot in engineering, a lot of nouns and pronouns. But anyway, and that made a difference in the responses I got, definitely.
Are there a few that come to mind or ones that you're willing to share when you think about what you would have said before and then what you're saying now or writing?
The feeling that I get back from my writing now is a more engagement.
Hmm.
They're not simply answering questions, they're sharing
Mm.
ideas and feelings. And it's a friendlier environment. Um, which is different than engineering. We like each other and we work together and we're friends, but it's not the same kind of friendship that you develop when you're talking the language of your client.
Hmm. So is that also learning how to ask more questions versus make more statements? I'm checking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's best just to be quiet because
Yeah.
while they're searching in their feeling, body, spirit, mind for answers, if you start talking, they'll stop searching.
Hmm.
So if you just quiet and let them have that moment of silence where you're not interfering with their process, they sometimes find things they didn't even know they had to deal with.
I love that you brought this into the room because silence, I always say, is an advanced selling skill. And it's one that many, many people struggle with. And yet, when you keep talking, you interrupt somebody's thought process. You interrupt kind of where they were going to go, what they were going to say. And so when you can allow for there to be silence, which can be very uncomfortable in the first when you're learning how to like use it from a skill set, from a communication standpoint, it is such a gift to another person to have somebody be willing to sit and let you process and get your thought out and get your what you want to say out. There's a real it's like to me it's just such a big gift. So for you to be incorporating that into your work, that feels like a huge win of being able to just remain silent and let somebody process, let them speak, because most of us are running through the world like, 10x, right? Like going a million miles a minute. And
Right.
so we forget that people do need time to process. And when you're sharing something with somebody, whether it's a prospect or whether it's an active client, this may be the first time they're exposed to whatever concept it is that you're talking about or working with you. And so when you allow them time to process what you've just shared and then come back with a comment or a question, like there is real brilliance there. So I love that you brought that into the room. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope a listener will take away from this of like, oh, maybe I should start practicing this a little bit more into my own conversations and client interactions.
This actually happened to me personally during a training exercise. I was the client, and I was asked to find my deepest fear, concern, struggle,
Hmm.
and I looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't find anything. I didn't see anything. That was when I was still struggling with emotions, by the way.
Mm.
And the person that was the being the counselor just sat there and didn't ask me any more questions. And all of a sudden, down, down, down deep, I found something I had never talked about. I would never have found it if she had continually asked questions or kept the verbal process going.
Yeah. I think that makes sense in a counseling, and I think counselors are trained for that. But from a sales perspective, sometimes people don't know what that one question is that they need answered in order for them to decide to hire you. And so by asking a strategic question and then by waiting and allow them that time that they need to process and that allow that, like how you said, you went deep, deep, deep and found this experience. The same thing can happen with a question. Is a question will bubble to the surface for the prospect that it's like until that question is answered, they won't be able to say yes to hiring you. But because you gave them that time and space to find that question, you're able to answer that question and ultimately earn the business. So it's another just really, like I said, it's an advanced selling technique, but it's one of those things that anybody can do. And you can do it whether you're having a conversation with a friend, you can do it when you're having a conversation with a loved one, and you can definitely do it in a sales conversation, and it will work the same in all of these different situations. So I love that you shared that. Thank you.
There's another thing about waiting that's part of the Alzheimer's training. It's called the 7-second rule. When you're talking to a person that has a dementia, and there are over 100 different types, you must give them time to process because they don't have as rapid access to their brain thinking. What is this word? What does it mean? How do I answer? Can I answer? Where are my words? I have a word, but it can't come to my lips. And if you try to help them by giving them the idea of what you thought they wanted to say, they have to start that process all over again.
Mm,
So it's very important when you're talking to a person with a dementia and you ask them something, give them some time to think about it.
hmm
And if you notice they're getting really agitated, just kindly say, I love you. It doesn't matter. Let's go have ice cream. That would work for me. I would go for the ice cream.
Ice cream would always be a heck yes for me too. I love that. I love that response. That's so fun. Carol, you are such a delight. We love having you in the Sales Maven Society. I love when you show up to the group coaching calls. I love your questions. You're so supportive of everybody else in there. Um, and I know that you have worked with some of the other members in the group and you've established these relationships, and that's been fantastic. Can I ask you, as we bring today to a close, what would you say has been a benefit to you specifically into your business and the things that you've incorporated, maybe in addition to some of the stuff that you've shared from being in that group for you?
That I'm not the only one that doesn't know what to do when a client, when a prospect is saying no, or um, I don't think this is for me, that there are ways to respond to that, leaving the way open for more conversation, engagement, and knowledge to help them make a better decision.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for being here. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you, Carol? Like if somebody's listening and they're a caregiver and they need some support, what's the best way for people to reach you?
I have a website that's called brainbitsbybecker.com.
What a fun name. Brainbitsbybecker.com. So fun.
And there's a contact,
Okay.
there's contact information in there.
Okay.
And if
Fantastic.
there, I don't know if I should say this, and we can take this out if you want, but I usually share my telephone number. Can I go ahead and do that? Or
Let's
would
have
that
them
not be a
go.
good idea?
Let's have them go to your website just because I don't want you to somehow get some random calls.
Okay, yeah, the phone number is there. Yeah,
Okay. The phone number is there on the site. So let's have them go to the website first and
okay.
foremost. Thank you, Carol. I appreciate you asking that. Okay. As we bring today to a close, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing the work that you do in the world. And thank you just for being a part of the group and just showing up and being you, Carol. We love you. You are a beloved member
And
of
thank
our
you.
group. Okay. For you, the listener, I hope you found some inspiration from this episode today. And I'd love to hear, what was your takeaway? What is something that you'll implement or do as a result of getting to spend this time today with Carol? And if you are inclined, reach out. We'd love to hear. All right. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for being here.